Hey everybody, welcome back to Volume 5 for That Time Satoru Gojo Got Reincarnated as a Slime. If you guys are new around here, make sure to go check out the playlist in the top upper right hand corner, where you can find all the prior parts of the story of Gojo becoming our beloved Rimuru. Now, let's get going with the actual story itself. Last time, Gojo helped a man named Mjolnir, saved him from a dragon specifically, and also got dinner for himself and the kids that Shizu had left to him. Now he had attained a location from Mjolnir's maid, someone who had hailed from the land of spirits, where it said that a door to the Labyrinth of the Spirit Queen remained unopened. Gojo would take the kids alongside with Ranga, heading to the stone doors after having a good night's rest and a nice dinner. With Gojo's six eyes, he could easily peer past the stone door, realizing that whatever sort of world that this Queen of Spirits lived in, it was similar to a veil from his old one, in that it completely blocked all of his vision from the outside, meaning that he would have to enter inside of this domain in order to truly find what's waiting for him there. Gojo would take a deep breath, pushing the doors open as himself, Ranga, and the children would follow behind him. With that, they'd enter into the Spirit Sanctuary, the legendary labyrinth controlled by the Queen of Spirits, and possibly the one who can save Rimuru and the kids from this predicament. With that, Gojo would only have one option: continue moving forward. He'd walk through and easily see through a number of traps laid before them, eventually entering into a large corridor that eventually opened up into a spherical room, a coliseum of the spirit labyrinth. Inside would be a large golem. It would be decorated with magisteel. Gojo had never seen such sophisticated magic circuitry before. Even with one glance of his six eyes, he'd be impressed, wondering how much research must have gone into creating an automata of this nature. As he entered into the room with the kids, he would be challenged by it as a voice rings out in a high-pitched squeal, saying, "You must defeat this golem. If so, your lives are forfeit, and if not, I will grant you one wit," as if though on cue. Gojo would yawn, holding up a hand as he simply says, "Red." With that, a ball of red energy would form in his palm, blasting forward as it rips the magisteel and the machine off the ground and into the wall, crashing into dust, as the voice would start sputtering in circles, saying, "Hey, I haven't counted down yet." Gojo would leap forward as he starts throwing punches at the machine. The voice would only get more frantic, screaming, saying, "Stop! Stop it!" With Gojo now even beginning to feel bad as the kids would say, Gojo-sensei, maybe you should..." The voice would begin crying as she says, I just finished rebuilding it." And at that moment, a burst of light would appear, with Gojo holding up the scrap metal he had created. In the center of the room, we'd have a ball of light fly towards Gojo and slam him in the forehead. Apparently, his six eyes and infinity had not recognized this as an attack, due to how weak it was. The orange-haired pixie would start slamming her tiny fists into Gojo's face, saying, You bully! How dare you break my precious magic golem! I spent so much time on it!" This is when Chloe and now the other girls in the class would begin to comfort the small fairy, saying, It's okay, Gojo-sensei will fix it, right, Gojo-sensei?" Gojo would scratch his chin looking at the piece of junk, before saying, you crying? Sorry. No, I can't fix this. To be completely honest, it's completely garbage. But, he'd see her eyes well up into tears, I can give you something even better. How about that, huh? I won't be quite as advanced as Automata, but it should serve your purposes. She'd cry out saying, what could he possibly have that he could offer to be equivalent to her grand masterpiece? She had put several minor spirits into that thing. It ran off of spirit magic power. It was impressive and unbeatable, or she had thought. Gojo would hold up his hands innocently, saying, well, hold your horses now. Give me a chance, alright? I got an idea. Hey, Great Sage, if I consume this, can you make a slimmer, more efficient replica based off of this material? And give it a more humanoid appearance. I'm gonna try using that demon summoning spell we learned earlier. Great Sage would sigh before humbly replying it'll try its best. With that, Gojo would use his devouring skill, consuming the entire mechanic, and causing all the kids in class to be horrified, now seeing his slime form for effectively the first time. With this, Ramiris, the guardian of the Labyrinth, would watch as he creates a new body from the material of the scrap metal. She'd irritably point out that there's no magic circles in it, no conduits for magic power, asking what the heck he's planning to do with that. Gojo would say, "Tisk, tisk, tisk. My dear sweet pixie, give it a chance, as he holds his hand out, pointing towards the ground and casting his summoning spell, summoning a greater demon of the black lineage. With that, he would have it contract with Ramiris, asking if this is a fair recompense, with this new contract and a greater demon being far more autonomous and powerful than what she had before. With that, Gojo would ask, "Well, Shrimpy, are you satisfied? Now, since I beat your Colossus thing, I'm gonna need you to give me my little favor too." He'd grab her by the wings, holding her up, and she starts screaming, saying, "Let go of her, you brute," as she'd try kicking and swinging at Gojo some more. Gojo would turn, pointing his thumb back to the kids, saying, "I'm looking for the Queen of Spirits. Can you tell me and maybe point me in the right direction? This is kind of a maze after all. I need her help in fixing them, since, they're dying and all." With that, she'd get even more mad, screaming that, "You idiot, I'm the Queen of Spirits right here." Huh? Oh, you're kidding. That's really funny. He'd wipe a tear away. Ugh, almost got me there. Okay, but seriously, where's the Queen of Spirits? I really need to talk to her. At this point, Ramiris is not playing around. She starts now steaming from her head, getting all red and stomping. With that, she turned to her new Beretta, saying, "Beretta, explain to this dope that I am the Queen of Spirits, the Demon Lord Ramiris, Lord of the Labyrinth. I am the Queen of Spirits." Just imagine the face Aqua makes in Konosuba. That's Ramiris right now. Beretta would ask Gojo to please be polite to her master, explaining that this is actually Ramiris, the Demon Lord, and the Queen of Spirits. At this point, Gojo would say, "A Demon Lord, huh? Oh, I met one of those before. Milim, she's the destroyer, right? Milim Nava? I think that was her name." Ramiris would make a peeping sound, saying, Milim, yeah, she's pretty strong. So how close are you exactly? You wouldn't happen to also be a new Demon Lord or something, right?" She'd hide behind Beretta. Gojo would laugh, scratching behind his head. "Well, in the non-traditional sense, I kinda am. I do live in a city full of monsters. But I don't think that's what you're looking for. I'm not a Demon Lord. I'm just Gojo Satoru. The strongest guy around." Ramiris would laugh, saying that he's not the strongest person she's ever seen, saying that would have to belong to Gi Crimson, the strongest Demon Lord she's ever known, and probably the strongest person in the world. Huh? Someone stronger than me, huh? Well, I guess it's possible. After all, I did get defeated by Sukuna in my last life. It's definitely possible someone more powerful than Sukuna could be here. I've already met Milim, and she completely surpassed my infinity. Crimson, okay. I'll keep an eye out for that name. Oh, that's not what I was asking for, though. Sorry, what's your name again? Queen of the Spirits, Lord Ramen? Ramiris! It's Ramiris! God, I hate idiots like you. Gojo would laugh, saying, "I'm just messing with you. I knew it was Ramarine. But anyway, point being, okay? Hey, stop kicking me. I want to fix these guys. Can you help indwell some greater spirits in their bodies? If you take a look, their magical levels are heightened above a normal degree. It's slowly killing them. I've heard from personal experience that by indwelling a greater spirit in someone like them, it can help stabilize that magic level. Want to give me a hand?" Ramiris would take a look at the kids, saying, I definitely see it. Well, I guess it doesn't hurt to try, but I can't make any greater spirits appear. Let's go to the dwelling of spirits and see if anyone chooses them." With that, she'd guide them all, and eventually ask if anyone would like to go first, leading to Ken being the first to volunteer. Ken would gulp, stepping forward as he'd take a step into the center, waiting for the spirits to choose him. After a mere few moments, a golden light would appear as a great spirit of light would choose him, saying that he's going to be an incredible hero someday, merging with him, and his magicule stabilizing according to Great Sage and his 6 eyes. Gojo would smile as he pumps his fist, saying, "Yes, it worked!" As the others would come to the stage, this is when we'd run into an issue. Some of the kids wouldn't be able to summon greater spirits. With this, Great Sage would come up with an idea, alerting Gojo of the idea of converting smaller mini-spirits using Predator to now consume spirits and create a greater spirit amalgamized of smaller, lesser spirits, which didn't have consciousness. Through this, he'd create these artificial spirits, indwelling them into the children and then stabilizing their magicules. Ramiris would be impressed, wondering how this guy has so much potential and control over magicules. She'd be wondering if he really was some sort of awakened being. Finally, it would be time for Chloe's turn. As she stands up, this is when something strange would happen. As if though space was folding, a rip would appear, as a woman with long black hair and almost a wedding dress-like apparel would fly through Gojo as he blocks, trying to keep her away from him. He'd hold up his infinity, but she'd phase right through it, holding her hands at his face as she practically kisses him while phasing through his body. He'd turn watching as she'd then merge into Chloe. As Chloe's magicules would stabilize, Gojo would wonder what the heck that was. Even Great Sage wouldn't have an answer, stating only again that it had detected a temporal anomaly. But I guess all's well that ends well. All of the kids would be stabilized, cheering that Gojo-sensei really saved them. Ramiris would be pleased with her new beretta, and everyone would leave the Sanctuary of Spirits. Ramiris would wave, saying goodbye to all of them, and sticking her tongue out and eye pulled down towards Gojo. With that, Gojo would sheepishly grin, saying, "Well, see you next time." Ramiris would reply, "See ya never," as she slams the door behind them. Gojo would laugh, saying, "Well, I don't think she likes me very much." The kids would disagree, saying they seemed that they got along well. Ramiris would laugh now with Beretta, saying that guy's pretty interesting. Gojo would be sure to take them back to Mjolnir first, thanking him and the maid for all the help, saying that their goal has been attained. Mjolnir would tell Gojo anything time he needed him or anything he needed just to let him know. He'd always be there for him, as his savior. Finally, the entire team would head back to the Kingdom of Ingracia, with Ranga happily carrying them a great distance before they finally reach within range of Gojo's teleportation. He'd clasp his hands together as they teleport directly into the school, now back in the classroom, as they'd thank him for everything. Gojo would finish teaching up the week, with several little side adventures taking place, such as, well, Gojo having to go back and commission a whole cart from Kaiji and the others, having this little outdoor exhibition with the kids, but most of those events would take place per usual, with a bit of hints of future characters to come, just like in the actual OVAs we got from the show. But nothing greatly changes here aside from Gojo being a different observer from Rimuru. Eventually, the fateful day would come, where it was time to say goodbye to all of them. Chloe would have tears in her eyes, thanking Gojo-sensei for everything and asking when they'll see him again. Gojo would grin, saying, "Anytime you guys want to come see me, of course," as he pulls out Shizu's mask, giving the mask to Chloe and throwing it to the group. He turned now, hopping on Ranga's back, saying, "Let's head home," leaving the kids in Ingracia as he leaves out of the city gates, unprepared for the horrors awaiting him back in Tempest. While Ranga and Gojo are walking through a grassy field, we hear rustling as we see a woman with short black hair, cut neatly, a sword at her waist. She'd have a white, flowing cloak, and on her chest would be a plate steel armor. Her eyes would be a mix of colors like that of the rainbow, predominantly blue. It was one of Shizu's students, much like the man himself, Yuki Kakurazaka, the Knight Captain of the Holy Kingdom of Luminous, that being Hinata Sakaguchi. Gojo's eyes would meet Hinata's, his eyes a clear blue like that of a summer sky. The 6 eyes. As the two meet, Hinata, with her unmoving face, would speak with a tone equally cold as she draws her blade. "I'm surprised. Shizu-sensei really was killed by a monster. Your death won't be painless, slime." As Gojo would step off of Ranga, he'd tell him to enter his shadow quickly, as the two would quickly meet with a burst of a sound wave, as Hinata's step would reach Gojo instantly. as his fist would be now coming close into contact with her blade. Back at Tempest, we can see what's going on, as Falmuth's army has now moved into attack. Mulan, a girl that had been met by the heroes party that Gojo had set up as the heroes who had slain the orc disaster, had infiltrated Tempest, and in her time there, she had quickly set up a barrier. Using the anti-magic barrier to weaken the monsters, Falmuth's soldiers would descend on the location, beginning to slay all of them. Shion, with her sword drawn, would say that she'll defend her lord's land until her last, as Benimaru, Soe, and the others would try their hardest, all of them fighting off the threat. But with this anti-magic barrier and the anti-spatial teleportation shield, they were getting slaughtered. Goblins, all of the people that had come to now seek Gojo's protection, they were being slayed. At this point we'd see Gobta now running out of magicules. However, Gobta would stand back up, as cursed energy would flow around him as he's fighting off the Falmuth soldiers. He'd say to hell with it, as everyone around him was beginning to die, he'd have to do it, pulling out his trump card. As Shion's life would pass, her energy fading, Gobta had no reason to hold back, now wielding the power of the 10 shadows that Gojo had bestowed on him. It was finally time. Gobta would squeeze his fists, holding them out as blood was pouring out of him, the Falmuth soldiers now pressing down on Tempest. He would begin the ritual. With this sacred treasure I summon the Divine General, Mahoraga! The Heavenly General would descend out of Gobta's shadow, summoned from the 10 Shadows technique. As Mahoraga would appear, it would begin beating Gobta, slamming his head to the ground as blood would spurt out. As Gobta would be the victim of Mahoraga, the beast would turn its Shikigami gaze as its wheel would begin to turn against the Falmuth soldiers. The slice of her sword would cut through the air quickly. Gojo would step out of the way, using infinity as he blocks the next slash. This is when Great Sage would make an announcement, proclaiming that this dead-end rainbow that Hinata Sakaguchi was using had the ability to affect and harm the soul. Gojo would smile, saying it's not the first time he's fought someone like this, as he takes a step back, catching the blade as he tries to snap in his hands. She pulled the sword back, trying to cut him, as the energy of curse energy and magicules from her spirit arts would clash. Gojo would laugh, saying that unless she can use a simple domain, there's no way that's gonna. Gojo's eyes would be shocked, seeing as his infinity was beginning to take damage, just as if though she was using a simple domain. Oh, it's the positive energy from her spirits. Of course, negative energy and negative energy makes positive energy. She's done it. She's using something akin to a reverse curse technique and applying it to my infinity. Well, Shizu's memories aren't wrong, Hinata Sakaguchi. He'd take a step back as she swings her blade, impressed with his sheer speed and adaptability. She was certain he was stronger than him based purely off of the magicules she was sensing, but for some reason he seemed to have almost as much combat experience as she did. She was getting annoyed. Dead End Rainbow. I've already struck you several times, and yet it seems your soul isn't taking as much damage as I anticipated. You must have some sort of technique you're using to block it. No matter. I have an unblockable attack, something that will eviscerate you in one strike. Rango would alert Gojo, saying that something's going on back at Tempest. He's getting a ton of distress signals. Great Sage would comment that they aren't receiving any data, suggesting this silence must be due to a barrier. Gojo would grit his teeth as he asked if they can break through it. Great Sage would say, easily, if we were from the outside. However, we're trapped inside another barrier, likely created by Hinata Sakaguchi. Hinata, while Gojo was thinking, would be casting the spell she was most proud of, Disintegration. The magic of destruction that used all of her spirit energy and completely eviscerated her target. Gojo would turn his eyes annoyingly towards Hinata, saying that he's got bigger problems right now. Hinata would say, don't avoid me, as she tries to cast the spell, sealing him inside of the now barrier around him with disintegration. Gojo would grit his teeth as he holds his hand out, saying, sorry, but I don't have time for games. Red and blue combined. At the moment of their merging, I transvert all of my magicule power into one singular spot, enhancing the power of it. Sorry, Sakaguchi, but I don't have time for you right now. True hollow purple. Gojo would snap his fingers, as a brilliant amethyst light would fill the air. The entire barrier, all of the magicules in the area, would be converted into imaginary energy, hollow purple, before he then pulls the magicules out of it, deactivating the ability and nullifying all of the magicules in the area. He would effectively have interrupted her spell. Removing all of the energy from her disintegration, Hinata would be shocked, her eyes wide as she asks, "How did you?" Before she could get another word in, Gojo would clasp his hands together onto Ranga as the two of them would disappear, vanishing from the area, having shattered the barriers around them and escape Hinata. Hinata would fall to the ground looking down as she realizes he's completely escaped her. Was that teleportation? He's even stronger than I thought. I'm not surprised that he actually managed to kill Shizu-sensei. Damn it, I failed! Meanwhile, back at Tempest, Gojo would arrive to see a sight of horror. The bodies of his comrades, of everyone in his town, everyone he had met in this world, and Shion. They'd be gathered in the center, Gobta laying next to her. And at that moment, they could only cower. As an explosion would shake the ground, Gojo would ask Benimaru and the others who had survived, who had been hiding in the center of town, asking what had happened, where was all of this destruction coming from? Gojo would grit his teeth. Unlike Rimuru, this was not his first experience with death. He lived every day knowing the consequence of living as a JuJutsu sorcerer, fighting cursed spirits who ruined the lives of humans. But now, the friends he had made here had been slaughtered, and it wasn't from cursed spirits. It was from humans who viewed them as the monsters. He'd have flashes of his memory, recalling the day that he fatefully had held Amanai. The cheers of onlookers now shouting at Tengen's star platinum vessel, having her life ended by Toji Fushiguro, the man who had almost claimed his life almost 20 years ago now. Gojo grit his teeth asking where were these bastards, saying he'll take care of them. His energy was now fluctuating as his power would be leaking out. He'd have a crazy look in his eye as Benimaru would cough, saying that Gobta's summon was still fighting the enemy, and they were quickly hastily retreating from their forces. Thankfully, Gobta's sacrifice had saved a majority of them, with only these brave souls having been the ones to be slayed. When Gojo had first teleported outside of Tempest, he had been alerted of the anti-magic barrier from when he had entered. His cursed energy remained unaffected by this barrier. However, he wasn't the only one. He would sense him as he turns, his eyes looking off into the distance where he'd hear screams from Falmuth's army, and the twisting of a wheel. Damn it. Gobta, you did it. You summoned him. The divine general to this world, huh? He looked down at Gobta, his eyes now filled with fury as he says, "There's a difference, you know. I tried telling you that. There's a difference between sacrificing everything to win, and just sacrificing everything." Gojo would use Infinity to fly up into the air before now chasing after the cursed energy signature of Mahoraga. Using his 6 eyes, he'd easily detect him as the screams of the humans of Falmuth's army would fall on deaf ears. Gojo would begin charging up another true hollow purple as he aims it towards Mahoraga. Mahoraga would turn as it begins slashing at Gojo. Gojo would dodge out of the way as its blows would now crush into Falmuth's army, as it slowly had been adapting to all of the magic and blades they had been using on it. It had grown more powerful. Everything they had thrown at it had been failing against it. As it kept getting stronger, it adapted to all of their attacks. Falmuth's army stood no chance. Gojo wouldn't care though. In fact, he wished that Mahoraga had made a bigger mess, as he holds up his fingers saying, "Good night, Mahoraga," using a true hollow purple and blasting it through the chest. Even this wouldn't finish it off as he moves forward at blinding speeds, pushing both of them outside of the anti-magic barrier where he can use his new techniques. Mahoraga had already gained a resistance to magic, but predation. Gojo would turn to a slime as he begins to cover Mahoraga. He'd begin consuming it. A battle of adaptation would occur as the Falmuth forces would be now caught in a wave of slime and screams from this cursed spirit. As Gojo, with all of his rage and fury, would power on, consuming Mahoraga quicker than it can adapt to its predation. As Gojo, much like with the Orc disaster, would completely devour Mahoraga, devouring the Divine General and having it analyzed by Great Sage. Gojo would stand before Falmuth's army, as slowly behind him, a golden disc would form as it begins to spin. Gojo would have a grin on his face, realizing he truly has become a monster. If you guys are excited for Volume 6 of That Time Satoru Gojo Got Reincarnated as a Slime, make sure to slap all those awesome looking buttons down there, you know you want to. Especially if you've made it this far, you might as well hit that red one with the little bell next to it to inject my content directly into your blood. Well, let's not go that far. Anyway, definitely look forward to the next part, where Gojo will have to make a decision that will change the truth of his humanity forever.